Trump is never going to jail by LegalEagle. Now, before we start, I do want to clarify that I'm going to try to keep as much of my personal perspective on who won out of this, right? That's not why we're here. I am very specifically here, and I think a lot of people are here for a legal analysis of the situation. Now, there are going to be certain things that I might be biased to, I might have a hot take to, but they're not necessarily going to be of the actual material here. They will be on tangentially related things. So, obviously, civility, right, professionality, all of that fun stuff. If it's not a video that you want to watch, that is perfectly fine. As I said, I'm here for the analysis, and LegalEagle, in my opinion, has regularly been professional about these kinds of things. So, let's get into the legal side of this.
Trump is not going to jail, ever.
Correct.
Sorry, there is no credible path for him to spend any time in prison for the crimes for which he has already been convicted or for which he almost certainly was going to be convicted in the future. He stalled,
Correct.
ran out the clock, and then became the referee again. And Donald Trump is going to be the president again. His criminal conviction and the 3 other cases were never really an issue in this election for reasons that boggle the mind. I guess mainly because America loves a bad boy. They're just not usually this bad. So what happens to Trump's legal cases now? Well, not to bury the lead, but they are effectively over. But I suppose...
Correct, and I have said this the entire past week. I have also been incredibly critical of the whole trials, how they kept getting stalled out. I know that there is a legal process. I know the legal process does take time, but respectfully, if this mattered, right? If this mattered to people to actually bury, to actually get done, it'd be done with, right? Yeah, a skill issue, right? If I, right, drag a video out, say I drag a video out to 2 hours, people don't watch it because I'm not engaging enough, that kind of thing, right? Skill issue, right? I'm not able to I'm not able to funnel my job down to a quick enough point or be concise enough that, yeah, no, I feel like I would have failed, right? And I think that's completely fair. Sorry, backgrounds do something weird. But yeah, like I've been incredibly critical on that. From an apolitical standpoint, from a strictly in the middle standpoint, right? From a legal perspective, right? Let's take the politics out of it. If there is a lawsuit against somebody and there is evidence or no evidence against it, but there is a suit and it gets dragged out into infinity, whose skill issue is that, right? So I have been very, very critical over the past few years. Oh, there's a legal process and this. Yes, there absolutely is a legal process. However, and this is a common trend, right? So we have individuals like Logan Paul, KSI, Mr. Beast, Lunchley, etc. There are ongoing suits currently, and this is public information. There are ongoing suits for certain products, such as Prime. One of these suits is being alleged that Lunchley failed to maintain their minimum order threshold, right? They had to get proprietary equipment in some of these plants, and because of that proprietary equipment, the agreement in the contract was going to be that, you need to do X amount in terms of minimum orders for the next 3 years, right? This is all being alleged. So the suit is being alleged that they broke that contract, that they did not do minimum orders. So moving it from this situation, which is obviously charged, into a situation similar where you have an ongoing suit with evidence, or even then you have to go through discovery to find more evidence, right? And if you're unable to close out that case in a reasonable time, the person is just going to keep doing things, right? We look at, Logan Paul and the lawsuit that, from my understanding, from a public standpoint, a public information standpoint, was dropped on the Forever Chemicals thing, right? According to Logan Paul even, right? Love his legal team for that. It was dropped. So, but even if there's a lawsuit going on for minimum orders, even if there's lawsuits going on for Forever Chemicals, even if there's lawsuits going on for, XYZ thing, people can and will still do things. So we enter this interesting scenario where the legal process is still there and it is still valid, but it is too slow to react to people that just don't care or will not care, or the system cannot touch them. We've talked about previously how rich people play by different rules, right? If I were to look at you, Twitch chat, if I were to look at you, right, and I was driving and I crashed, right, I would be held to a different degree of accountability than Jack Doherty being on, Kick Chat and, crashing his McLaren, right? There is just a difference there.
In a morbidly fascinating way, it is interesting how and why each of these different cases is now dead. Now, to understand why, we first have to talk about presidential immunity. We've talked about this on this channel before, so this is a broad summary, but back in 2022, there was a congressional inquiry into Trump's role in the events of January 6th. The House Select Committee gathered evidence for 17 months, and Donald Trump declared his candidacy for the 2024 presidential election on November 15th, 2022, before the committee finished its report. The House Select Committee report was released on December 22nd, 2022, and 8 months later, the Department of Justice filed charges against Trump in Washington, D.C. This indictment, brought by special counsel Jack Smith, included 4 counts: conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights.
And so that's the thing. From an objective standpoint, we can look at this. What is a lawsuit? A lawsuit is saying we are alleging these things against you, right? I am alleging that, Raven, we're going to bully you. I am alleging that you called me a stinky face. I'm going to sue you for defamation, right? That doesn't mean it has weight. Now, obviously, when it comes to this, then we have evidence. We have photo evidence, video evidence, testimony, a bunch of other things that go into this, right? At its core, when someone files a lawsuit, you are alleging something against them, right? So that inherently is why I will look at things like, once again, Logan Paul and the lawsuit, which is, once again, from a public information standpoint, I understand that the suit has been dropped over the Forever Chemical things, right? So you look at that and go, okay, this was alleged that this contained these chemicals or elevated levels of these chemicals, but it was dismissed. So you look at that and go, well, are they necessarily at fault? Not necessarily. When you look at a lawsuit, it is what is being alleged, and that's why there's a court process. And it has to, right, it has to take time, but once again, coming back to time being the issue.
Now, this led to a battle over the nature of presidential immunity. Presidential immunity refers to the legal protections that shield a sitting president from certain legal actions and liabilities while in office, and there are 3 points to remember as we go forward. First is that a president is immune from civil suits for actions taken as part of their official duties. This was confirmed in the 1982 Supreme Court case Nixon versus Fitzgerald, which held that a president was absolutely immune from civil damages for actions within the outer perimeter of their official responsibilities. Second, the presidential immunity does not cover actions taken before the president took office. This was established in Clinton versus Jones when the Supreme Court ruled that then-President Bill Clinton could be sued for alleged misconduct before becoming president. And third, presidents have broad immunity from criminal prosecution. This wasn't always necessarily the case. Before Trump was president, the general assumed rule was that presidents were not immune for criminal prosecution. However, there were caveats. The Department of Justice's official policy, outlined in memos from the Office of Legal Counsel, especially one in 1973, is that a sitting president could not face criminal indictment or prosecution while they were president, reasoning that it would interfere with the executive branch's ability to function. In 1973, Robert G. Dixon.
So, from a moral and ethical standpoint, I can disagree with immunity. From a objective standpoint, like from a, I don't even want to say objective. From a standpoint of doing the job, right? Let's say a country or a group of extreme individuals within a country that the country does not recognize decide to go, we're going to touch the U.S.'s boats, right? And then you're like, okay, well, executive office, right? You have certain things you have to consider, or things that are hidden behind, you know, spicy manila folders, right? And what if that violates a law somewhere? What if that violates human rights, right? And when I'm talking about human rights, I'm talking about specifically like Ted Kaczynski, right? Unabomber status, right? Some just extremist somewhere is doing something, and maybe you do. There's something that you do that can violate something that they have, but it gets someone dangerous like that off the street. But even then, we're getting so far into the weeds at this point, and this becomes such a nitty-gritty pick-apart conversation at this point that, like, this is why that would exist. In order to be able to do jobs that the office would require. Otherwise, it would be bogged down into infinity from, one, the sheer amount of things that have to happen, and two, from some of the things that I guarantee are going to have to happen, you know, foreign agents, foreign policy, domestic policy, et cetera, right? Especially dealing with people that may or may not be the kindest, the most sane, et cetera. So I can see from a job title standpoint, but once again, moral and ethics, to me at least, from a objective standpoint, do dictate that that is a skill issue. Get good moments. You should not be immune if you do something that is objectively wrong or against the law. I mean, you are the head of the executive branch, right? Executive branch does include, last I checked, the police as well. So definitely not a good look from a leadership standpoint.
Jr., the then Assistant Attorney General, issued the memo called Ray, Amenability of the President, Vice President, and Other Civil Officers to Federal Criminal Prosecutions while in Office. And in that memo, the Department of Justice concluded that an indictment or criminal prosecution of a sitting president would impermissibly undermine the capacity of the executive branch to perform its constitutionally assigned functions. However, it was always assumed that the sitting president.
So that is a misunderstanding. That is that would be the judicial branch, from my understanding. There's judicial, executive. I always forget what the third one is, and the Supreme Court is kind of this weird satellite entity. There are multiple branches. The judicial make the laws. Executive, as far as I'm aware, enforce the laws. So that is not necessarily a correct statement saying that the people making the laws in that context should be immune to them. However, that statement as a whole does apply. So just different branches, different functions, most correct information.
And could face criminal charges after leaving office once their term ended. Now, we'll talk about this particular DOJ memo later, because in this particular circumstance, Robert G. Dixon Jr. really screwed the American people. But that brings us back to the Trump litigation itself, because in Trump versus U.S., Jack Smith sought to admit testimony and records from Trump and his advisors about the events leading up to January 6th. The Supreme Court ruled, among other things, that the district court could not consider this evidence in proving their case against Trump. And the top line ruling from the Supreme Court was, quote, under our constitutional structure of separated powers, the nature of presidential power entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority, and he is entitled to at least presumptive immunity from prosecution for all of his official acts. There is no immunity for unofficial acts.
Right. So thank you, Raven, for clarifying that. Legislative makes the laws. We have legislative, judicial, and executive, and then Supreme Court, I think, is technically separate from judicial. But yes, that is the most correct information. Thank you for clarifying that.
Now, we've talked at length about this particular decision on this channel, and it is much, much worse than it seems at first glance. But in sum, the decision significantly expanded presidential immunity and also left a lot of work for the lower courts to do in applying this new never-known standard. And the court's ruling will impact all four of Trump's cases. And as much as it was uncharted territory about whether a president could be criminally tried for their actions, it is off the globe uncharted what happens when you prosecute a president and then he gets reelected.
Correct.
Fun. Yeah, so I guess if you're the president,
there is literally no precedent for this.
You don't need a good lawyer because everything is just legal. But if you're not the president and you need a great lawyer, you can let my law firm, the Eagle Team, help. If you've gotten into a car crash, suffered a data breach, especially if you got a data breach letter saying your social security number has been hacked, or are dealing with a workers' comp or social security issue, we can represent you or help find you the right attorney. Because it's so important to talk to a lawyer right away so you can maximize your recovery and get the best representation. So just click on the link in the description or call the phone number that's on screen right now for a free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle Team. So click below. So in looking at the prosecutions, let's start in New York.
I do love his tagline. I do love it. I would give that a 10 out of 10. It was short, succinct, thematic. I liked it. 10 out of 10.
Where a jury convicted Trump on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records related to hush money payments intended to influence the 2016 presidential election.
So this one does actually interest me because if he is barred from doing business in New York, which as far as I'm aware is the actual fallout, the actual resolution of this, even if it is made legal, like, oh, no, I'm able to do business again. I wonder if businesses will simply refuse, right? And there's been a number of things that would set precedent for this, right? There was the whole, well, I make wedding cakes, but I don't make wedding cakes for gay people, them gay folks. It's like, bro, it's a cake. I don't care. Who cares? Like, but even then, you could use something like that as precedent, right? Well, I'm sorry, we don't want to do it. Well, that's, and then thus argument of, well, that's not fair. That's not, that's not okay. That's pretty awful of you to up into that's not constitutional, to which what part of the Constitution would a private business be infringing upon? I mean, I'd love to see a paper on that, trying to justify that in a professional capacity. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at this point as well. Claims, allegations, etc. I'm starting to demand theses. I'm starting to demand papers. But Kip, that's not how that works. Oh no. You misunderstand. I have stopped being nice. Especially with certain subjects, right? I was watching John Oliver. Was watching the whole Civil War thing. Well, Civil War is about states' rights. States' rights to do what? Oh, well, it was about this and this. Okay, states' rights to do what? Well, it was about this and this. Okay, I'm going to need to see an actual paper from you and understanding that you understand the thing that you're talking about at this point. because this is not worth my time. It's not worth your time. Okay. If you, and this is where I'm at this point, right? If people have not done the work, and this is me included, why should people who are educated bother? Obviously educators, obviously, people in positions of, hey, guess what? We need to, maybe we need to get these people on the same page, right? If I have to do the work, if I have to do the research, so should everyone else, right? That would be fair. That would be equal, right? And it really just comes down to, if you have not done the work, if you don't know what you're talking about, why are you talking about it? Why in any capacity? That's not me infringing upon your free speech in any capacity, right? Sure, I'm saying, I'm not even saying that you can't. It's that, why are you talking about this? If you try to have a bad faith discussion or argument with me, I'm just going to leave. What are you going to do? Like, turn me around, hold me there and shake me in place and then yell at me? Like you can't do that. That's not how that works. Oh, that works. Oh my God, my throat is absolutely just bonkers today. I'm so sorry.
During and after the trial, Trump raged against Judge Juan Merchan and his family. Judge Merchan then postponed his sentencing until after the 2024 presidential election to avoid any appearance of political bias against Trump. Now, these crimes were committed over 8 years ago and in aid of winning the first election in 2016. And now Trump has won another election. So what becomes of the case in New York? Well, Trump was convicted on 34 counts of falsifying business records, and each count is classified as a Class E felony under New York law, which carries a maximum sentence of up to 4 years in prison per count. But there was no minimum sentence, meaning that the punishment could have been just probation or fines. And while the law permits a maximum sentence of 4 years per count, actual sentencing varies depending on factors like the defendant's prior criminal history,
Sure.
the specifics of the events, and judicial discretion. And in some cases, defendants convicted of Class E felonies might get probation instead of incarceration, especially if they are first-time offenders or if there are mitigating circumstances present.
So hear me out, and I think this actually addresses a lot of the Johnny Somali, Jack Doherty, neon prank culture people, right, and celebrities as well. I think that there needs to be a case that does set precedent, hear me out on this, that sets precedent that if you are a public figure, if you are in a public office, etc., like if you are a celebrity personality, public figure, right, if you have influence, you should be held to a higher degree, a higher caliber. So someone like Logan Paul, who factually showed a body in a Japanese forest and uploaded it to YouTube, right? And then I've had a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment. Bro, come on. You know what you were doing, okay? You knew what you were doing. I will not let that die. You knew exactly what you were doing. People like that, or people like kick streamers who push people into trains and stuff, they absolutely should be held to a higher caliber. Their influence and status should 100% play a role in their sentencing. And I think that's where we start to get into fixing a lot of issues, fixing a lot of personality, public figure issues, ignoring politics for the second, right? But like, hey, let's maybe not, you have a bigger influence than John Doe, than Jane Doe. Maybe you should suffer big boy consequences because you have responsibility. You have that ability and that outreach. Therefore, get bent.
And I hate to break it to you, even though Trump is barred from opening a charity or operating a business in New York, he's still considered a first-time criminal offender. And as of the time of this video, Trump is due to be sentenced on November 26, 2024. However, Judge Merchan gave himself a deadline of November 12th to decide whether the convictions should be overturned because of any of the immunity issues. Now, why would the immunity decision be an issue if the illegal conduct happened before Trump was president? Well, Trump continued to pay back Cohen for the illegal hush money payments after he was sworn in. And Trump's lawyers have argued that the evidence used to convict him includes official acts, and therefore it should be overturned. Now, Trump could in theory be sentenced to prison.
Okay, to be fair, as far as I'm aware, his current lawyers, are absolute buffoons. This is from what I've heard on good authority. Objectively, they are filing paperwork wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. They have issues doing a basic job, everything that is quite literally a skill issue. And we did have a prior legal team or prior lawyers completely drop him because of certain things, right? So I have on good authority that his current legal team is literally like potato heads. So yes, respect from a lawyer legal standpoint, but also disappointment as how did you even get a GED? Did you buy your actual law certificate? Which, that would be hyperbolic. That would even be, parody, right? Is that necessary? I don't know, dude. It's wild. Yeah, if you're filing incorrect paperwork, that should be just immediately just like, nah, especially if there's more offenses. But that's in any position, right? You're working at a factory, right? And you have your apprentice, right? And your apprentice keeps trying to go, okay, this is the work order. This is what I need, right? Okay, this is wrong, though. 3 strikes, you're out, right? 3rd strike, you have no capability to understand what you're doing, okay? You're going to go home. You're going to do this course. You will come back, and you will do your job, right? I think that's incredibly fair, right? Once again, take the public figures and the politics out of it, right? I think everybody across the spectrum, anybody, whoever you are, if you have someone at your work that is not doing their job and consistently does not do their job, it's going to be frustrating. At what point do you say, when do we fire them? When do we not allow them to have an opinion in workplace matters? When do we effectively send them to extra training, right? Or they just get let go because they can't do the job, right? To which then that argues, well, jobs need to be they need to be pretty open to people. We need to make sure that everyone is able to be on the same page. Okay, but when you are in a position where your basic skill set is going to be Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, you are unable to do them, and then you refuse any of the help to learn Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and you applied for an at-home online position. Why are you on payroll? Well, but in that case, very specifically, Kip, it's because they're over the age of 60. I once again, can you do your job? I literally do not care. I don't care who you are. I don't care how you identify as. I don't care what your politics or belief are. Can you do the job that I need you to do? Yes or no? Well, I don't have the skill set. Okay, you have said no. I will go talk to people who know how to do their job, who take their job seriously, and I'm going to make sure I get my job done so I can go home and get paid. I think that is a completely fair and reasonable way to look at all of that.
Before he takes office in 2025. But that's simply not going to happen.
If you can't do the time, don't do the crime.
Amazing.
Okay, time's up.
But New York procedure is weird, so let's talk to one of the best commentators on New York criminal law, former federal prosecutor Mitchell Epner. Mitch, what's likely to happen here?
Thank you, Devin, for that kind of introduction. My expectation is that there is no world where Trump will actually get sentenced 2 weeks later on November 26th on what is his currently scheduled sentencing date. There are 3 possibilities that may emerge from Justice Merchan's ruling. Possibility number 1 is that Justice Merchan will hold that the entire prosecution was fine. It comported with the restrictions set forth by the Supreme Court in Trump versus United States. And as far as he's concerned, the case can move forward to sentencing on November 26th. At that point, Trump will be able to stop the sentencing by taking an appeal, because under longstanding United States and New York precedent, when you have an appeal of an immunity decision, that appeal can be taken immediately. It's called an interlocutory appeal, and that will stop everything else in its tracks. Possibility number 2 is that Justice Merchan would rule that there were problems with the prosecution in the trial evidence that was presented, and on that basis, hope that it was required that there be a mistrial and a retrial. Obviously, if there's a retrial, then all 34 convictions would be vacated, but that retrial certainly could not happen before January 20th of 2025. And once we get to January 20th of 2025, nothing can happen until Trump leaves office, which, absent death, would mean January 20th of 2029. Possibility number 3.
It's probably his camera bit, right?
Is that Justice Merchan rules that the indictment itself was fatally defective because it relied upon evidence that could not be used in a prosecution of a former president. And if that were to take place and the indictment were dismissed, that would end this case, because District Attorney's Office for New York would not be able to go back and get a new indictment, because the statute of limitations on this case, which again goes back to things that happened in 2016 and 2017, would have long since expired. So that is why I think that nobody should be making reservations for a sentencing on November 26th. I believe that this case will, one way or the other, stop in its tracks on November 12th. Back to you, Devin.
Okay, so that...
No, I view any case currently against the spicy Dorito. I view any case as dead in the water. And honestly, so here's what opens up for immunity, right? When we talk about immunity, what stops the spicy Dorito from going after any of these people who were working on cases against him? What happens to those lawyers, right? So here's my meta take, and this is why I've been pretty dismissive over the past few weeks. So I had somebody argue in my chat recently, well, we just need to bring mental asylums back, right? I promise this actually comes back to my point. Well, why we just need to bring mental asylums back. We just need to corral up all these people and, just throw them in mental asylums. I even had a buddy argue, yeah, we need mental asylums back. However, they need to not be privatized. They need to be, federally ran. They need to be regulated. They need good conditions, etc. To which my response is, you realize that, one, as a neurospicy individual myself, I take great issue with that because I'm literally the person that you are sentencing into an asylum. Do you understand that, right? Can you comprehend that? Well, your words, your actions hold weight, right? It's literally my tagline, right? Words have power, actions hold weight. So to even remotely pitch an idea like that has now set the idea forth for me of, that's fine. I'm a neurospicy individual. I'm also an outspoken individual, right? 100%. Someone can go, democracy officer, yes, that one right there points to me, and I'm locked in an asylum that requires 8 signatures to get out, like it was in, the 1950s, 1960s? Remember, it wasn't just people with depression. It wasn't just people with bipolar. It wasn't just people with, insert thing here, right? If you were outspoken, if you were a woman on menopause, if you were a woman that didn't listen to her husband, factually, historically, you could get sent to that. So my argument has been, so when do we just do this, right? When is this happening? I need to know for my timeline how much time I have left, right? If we're going to have this entire thing that has been argued to me on stream, we need this. We need asylums back. When is it happening? When are we getting asylums? When am I, as a neurospicy individual in modern times, getting sent to an asylum? When? And do you think I get to vote after that? Do you think that I get any protections? Do you think that I get any rights? I just need to know in advance when I get to lose rights and when I go into an asylum. You might argue that I'm being hyperbolic. Literally had it argued to me this past week. That is my defense, okay? 100%.
Brings us to the special counsel Jack Smith prosecutions in D.C. and Florida. Now, the district court regained jurisdiction of Trump's election conspiracy case in August in D.C. However, because of the Supreme Court's ruling in Trump versus the United States, Judge Tanya Chutkan is now weighing whether Trump is immune for actions he took to overturn the 2020 election. Smith filed a superseding indictment on August 24th, 2024, and Judge Chutkan granted Smith's request to file a motion on the immunity determination and allowed Smith to file a redacted version of the public docket. Now, we covered these developments in the past, but the most important thing to know is that as president, Trump will have the power to fire Jack Smith. And Trump has already confirmed, quote, "I will fire Jack Smith in 2 seconds." Sources told CNN that Smith had no intention of quitting and would try to move the case forward between now and Inauguration Day. However, there are already reports that DOJ will wind down the DC and Florida prosecutions to comply with long-standing policy that sitting presidents can't be prosecuted. Now, we'll talk about that more in a second. But if Jack Smith does stay on the job, does the president have the right to dismiss a special prosecutor? Well, basically,
does it matter? So here's the thing. We can absolutely discuss the legal side of things. Does it matter? If it is known that there is going to be immunity, does it matter? Who's to say that he can't just take all the documents, right? All documents with spicy edges, classified documents. So here's the thing about classified documents, right? And I had a family member argue this. Well, how can there be classified documents? How is there above top secret information? My brother and Christina Aguilera. There is no reason that outside of a select group of people, you need to know about a foreign agent in a war zone in the Middle East. Who their name is, who their family is. It's got to be recorded, right? There's got to be a record of them. That way they're on books in some capacity. But does that mean, I need to know as a civilian? No. Does that mean that the FBI needs to know? Probably need to know basis. CIA, probably certain departments of the CIA. There is literally need to know basis. And I invite any military member here. Any military member that can comment in some capacity about how procedure works, obviously observing all NDA and OPSEC, right? No, that's not that. No, do not break that. I will never advocate for that, right? That there is certain need to know things. Like you go to a specific hangar that personnel aren't allowed in, but you're allowed in that hangar from between certain times, and you're being watched in that hangar working on something, right? Something that may or may not be there. You can neither confirm nor deny, right? Something like that. So, yes, there is such a thing as compartmentalized information from a literal objective standpoint. And I would argue as well, if we can have any individual have classified documents of all tiers and get away with it, every military member, in my opinion, should be asking their superiors for some sort of legal representation, because why do you guys get in trouble? Why would you guys get in trouble if other people can get away with it? You guys can get court-martialed. Military can be dismissed, dishonorably discharged, which, affects VA benefits and stuff, right? So if you as military can make a joke about something in a hangar and immediately have people on you and get taken to a funny little room, why should you guys get in trouble for having classified information? I think that this itself could set some sort of precedent, could it not? I think it'd only be fair. Once again, my bias is at military command, top brass, etc. My bias is towards helping the person that's just on the ground, that does the actual job, right? That has been my bias from day one. And that's the thing. You as military, you are still your own autonomous individual, right? I've consistently debated the idea back and forth. What separates me from Karl Marx? What separates me from a cult-like personality, being a personality on the internet, right? And having some sort of sway and influence over others. I feel like my biggest rebuttal to that line of thinking is that you, at the end of the day, are still your own independent individual. You're still your own person with your own agency. If you don't want to talk about something, you don't have to talk about something. If you don't want to watch something, you don't have to watch something. That, hey, cool, I'm interested in things, but no, OPSEC NDA, no, I totally get it. Or you just don't want to talk about it. That's completely fine. I'm also not military, so I can't have certain conversations. That's totally fine. You retain your agency, and I think that's the important takeaway from this. So, that being said, I think that this is an interesting and spicy line of thinking that could be that could be continued in some capacity, even if, as Chad is saying, military law does not work on English common law. Precedence doesn't account for squat until public backlash is too much. Maybe the public does need to get mad. Why does someone's family member have to get dishonorably discharged and out of VA benefits for dealing with something that's classified when we clearly have classified documents mean nothing, right? I think that's incredibly fair. I think that, helps protect people in the military at the ground level. Does it not?
Yes, though theoretically he would have to go through the DOJ. The Attorney General has the power to appoint or dismiss a special prosecutor. Now, in practice, the president would typically have to instruct the Attorney General to dismiss the special counsel. If the Attorney General refuses, then the president could theoretically just remove the Attorney General and continue down the chain of command until they find someone willing to carry out that order. This is what happened in Watergate, and this was a full-on constitutional crisis that we called the Saturday Night Massacre. But realistically, Trump is not going to appoint anyone who would refuse his order to sack Jack Smith. And included in the list of the people who've been floated to take over the DOJ from Attorney General Merrick Garland is Trump's favorite Florida judge, Eileen Cannon. Others include Trump's 2020 co-conspirator, Jeff Clark, Senator Mike Lee, who wants to go after the deep state.
There's a woman. There's DEI, right? You see how dumb that sounds? I just laugh whenever that gets tossed around anymore. I honestly do. I burst into giggles.
State, and Mike Davis, a lawyer who was promised to, quote, bring a reign of terror to D.C. So if these cases are still ongoing, Jack Smith is 100% getting fired, if 100%. Not prosecuted. And that brings us to Florida. Current judge and potentially future Attorney General Cannon recently dismissed the entire case against Trump, ruling that the appointment of Smith was unconstitutional. And although courts have previously ruled that the special counsel statute was constitutional, there is a conservative movement against the concept of special counsels, especially ones appointed by Democrats. Justice Thomas, in his concurring opinion in Trump versus U.S.,
why does he look like he had a lot of Taco Bell? Dude, that hot sauce is hitting his colon right now. Oh my God, dude. Is this man okay? Does he need a Tums? Dude, that is a pinch your face. Oh my God.
Opined that the special counsel statute was illegal, and Judge Cannon relied on that statement to throw the case out. Although prosecutors have appealed, it's not clear what will become of the case now. And even if the 11th Circuit ruled in favor of Smith, it's not clear that the prosecution could continue without him. And Trump would also appeal the decision all the way to the Supreme Court, which might just rule that Smith was appointed illegally. Who knows? And in many ways, the Florida case contained the most serious allegations against Trump. He held classified national security documents in a semi-public area of his golf club, and the evidence is voluminous, and it's a tragedy that this case will probably never go to trial. And again—
No, 100%. No. Anyone is deluded if they think that any sort of lawsuit would do. You see, here's the thing that I have to question, right? The whole January 6th incident, we glorified it and celebritied it, right? 50, 60 years ago, we would have had a firing line, right? Can you imagine, chat, I want you to just imagine this for a second. What if Hip got to the White House? What if I walked inside the White House? What if I interrupted an entire session? If I were to do anything like that, I would have officers over me. I would have firearms pointed at me, ready to fire for any movement. They don't know what I'm doing. They don't know if I have an IED. They don't know if I have some sort of device on me. They don't know my intention there. And honestly, my expectation, if I were to do that, I would get public firing squatted to be made an example of. Well, that's not humane. I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's just kind of the expectation that I have. Chat, what if I were to walk on to a military base without need to be there, right? Let's say Idaho, Mountain Home Air Force Base, right? Not even super high security, right? What if I were to just break into Mountain Home Air Force Base? I would probably have some sort of firearm trained on me at some point. Be told to get down if I'm lucky, because you literally do not know. You have no idea why I'm there. You just don't know. How do you know? The fact that we made celebrities out of this weird Viking dude that's just like, oh, I need a vegan diet. Skill issue, get bent. Right to the gulag. Let's go. Come on, Guantanamo. Let's go.
Another thing to watch is whether a president-elect is covered by the same immunity as a sitting president. We've never had a reason to consider that question, so the Office of Legal Counsel has not issued any guidance on it. But there are several credible reports that Special Counsel Jack Smith is already reportedly in talks with officials at the Department of Justice to wind down his 2 prosecutions of President-elect Donald Trump. And if it were up to me, I'd probably continue the prosecutions right up until the moment that Trump is sworn in, and then make him fire the special counsel. This winding down process does kind of make sense. It's infuriating, but Jack Smith does have to comply with the OLC memo that says you can't prosecute a sitting president. So with respect to his cases, he faces 2 choices. Either dismiss the cases without prejudice or try to ask for a stay from the judges. Now the stay would make sense, hopefully to toll the statute of limitations, because he's already filed the case, so if the cases are stayed, then the statute of limitations doesn't run. But if the cases are stayed, that means that the Trump administration could just come in with a new counsel from the DOJ and dismiss the case with prejudice, meaning that the case could never be refiled. So ironically, dismissing the cases without prejudice might be the best course of action, because then theoretically the cases could be brought up at some other time. The problem is that if the cases are dismissed, the statute of limitations would surely run during the course of the next 4 years, and then the statute of limitations would bar them, unless courts would create some sort of equitable tolling because of the fact that the president is sitting and cannot be indicted or prosecuted while being a sitting president. So there really is no good answer here. And of course, if the prosecutions continue until Jack Smith is fired, then Trump's DOJ could simply dismiss the cases with prejudice, and again, it's never being refiled. The one potential—
I mean, they're all 100% getting dismissed. I don't see a reality in which they don't. That just makes sense. It just makes business sense.
Silver lining here is that under the special counsel statute, the special counsel is to prepare a final report at the conclusion of the case. And by winding down the prosecutions, that would probably allow Smith and his team to prepare final reports that I have no doubt would chronicle all the ways that Donald Trump broke the law. It's possible that Smith did learn his lessons from the Mueller report and might explicitly say all the ways that Donald Trump acted illegally and might chronicle all the evidence to support that. And possibly with the approval of the Attorney General, he could publish some such reports. And then in Georgia, the Georgia case suffers from all of the infirmities of the New York case, but probably more so. That case is currently stalled because of Fani Willis's relationship with her coworker Nathan Wade, which Trump says presents a conflict of interest. And the Georgia Supreme Court will hear that case on December 5th. But even on its own merits, that case probably wasn't going to go forward for a couple of years. But now with all of the arguments about Trump being a future sitting president, that case is almost certainly going to be stayed, if not dismissed outright. And of course, it bears mentioning that another nightmare scenario is that Trump could pardon himself. This is yet another unresolved constitutional question. And of course, those pardons would deal with any future federal prosecution, but not the state prosecutions. But honestly, that's not likely to happen unless it's on the way out the door, pardoning himself for all the things that he commits during 2025 to 2029, because he's just going to quash any federal prosecution. So he doesn't actually need to pardon himself. Now, if the lack of legal accountability for abject criminality has you eating your feelings, I sympathize, I'm doing the same thing, but you can have your cake and eat it too with today's sponsor, Factor. Because Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. And the meals are completely ready to eat in just 2 minutes. You can eliminate the hours it would take to shop, meal prep, and cook, so you can spend your day doing the things you actually want to do. Now, Thanksgiving is coming up, and I know I won't want to be cooking and shopping more than I need to around the holidays, and Factor is perfect for that. Plus, you'll never get bored with what you're eating. You can choose from over 35 different options
I'm going to explain why the holidays this year are going to be very funny to me. They're going to be very entertaining.
Options a week, including ones that are keto, calorie smart, vegan, and veggie, and more. And on top of that, Factor offers lots of snack options for when you don't feel like a full meal. Factor meals are fresh and never frozen, so I know I'm getting a high-quality meal. Factor meals arrive at your doorstep pre-prepared and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. In the same amount of time that I can even think about going to a grocery store, my Factor meal is already done. Because sometimes I just want a good, healthy meal without having to cook. And it's a perfect workday dinner. And it's surprisingly affordable too, way less expensive than takeout or pricey delivery apps, and plus it tastes way better. And now Factor also offers Gourmet Plus meals as part of your weekly options. You can try meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, truffle butter, and asparagus. And I've really been into fish lately, and I love their surf and surf option, shrimp and salmon. It's always a bright spot in my day, but honestly, you can't go wrong with their normal offerings either. Factor's team of gourmet chefs creates each meal to help you feel your best all day long, and they really are extremely delicious. And Factor's flexible. You can pause or reschedule your deliveries at any time. Now, all this is making me super hungry, so click on the link below or the one that's on screen right now and use the code 50LegalEagle to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. Again, just click on the link below or go to factor75.com and use the code 50LegalEagle to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. And after that, click on this box over here for more Legal Eagle, or I'll see you in court.
But there was no box. Was the box the friends we made along the way? So first off, thank you, Legal Eagle, for putting together such a piece in such a short period of time. I was actually surprised that this came out as quick as it did. I want to bring up, and this is Twitter, so unverified. This is why the holiday season to me is going to be absolutely hysterical for me. So this is a Twitter post that I found, and I'm going to read this out to you because this is the truest thing that I've seen in a minute, if this is true. Results have started. It's from an American Woman Today. My husband works for a small manufacturing company, and here in southwestern Pennsylvania, that means most employees are voting of a certain variety, right? When the president of the company sat them down today to tell them that their annual Christmas bonus would not come this year because they now need to purchase at least a year's worth of products prior to January 21st due to the proposed tariffs, they didn't understand. My husband said that their president had to explain what a tariff is and how it will directly hurt their company. They all thought the foreign company paid the tariff. This is a level of ignorance that, and obviously we get into, a thing here. So here's the thing. I'm calling BS because no adult is going to have a tariff explained to them. I will issue that challenge right now. If you are a functioning adult, or if you... Look, man, you don't know, it doesn't matter who I voted for. I was there as the ballot seals were broken. I'm going to call skill issue. If you worked, if you had things like that, that's fine. If you didn't, you have zero issues to not be there when the ballot seals are broken. I am not being nice anymore. So, as an adult, I'm calling BS. You are an adult. You are a functioning adult member of society. And you want to play big boy games. That's fine. You know what a tariff is. You know what sanctions are. You know what restrictions are. There is zero excuse for you with a high school education, even not a high school education. What is a tariff? Companies go tit for tat with each other. Now you pay more for stuff, right? It's a tax. Hey, so say there's an export from, England, right? Hey, U.S., we're going to sell you this thing. Okay, well, but we have a tariff on this, so you got to pay more for this. The U.S. still pays for that. So, I mean, I'm calling actual skill issue at this point. Actual ignorance? No, ignorance isn't an excuse anymore. That's the thing. I refuse to believe it's ignorance anymore. You are an adult. You're expected, right? As many people expect me to have some kind of higher moral compass and be this awesome person. I don't know. I'm just an idiot on the internet. I refuse to believe that it is ignorance anymore, and you will be held accountable. You don't like what I'm saying? That's fine. Okay. we want to argue, right to free speech and stuff like that? That's fine. Are you going to come after mine? Are we going to commit myself to an asylum, right? Are we going to, as was argued in Twitch chat, say, we need asylums back to my face when I have had multiple discussions this year alone in regards to, the cruelty of asylums and, what happened there. The fact that lobotomies were cutting edge science at one point in time. I refuse to believe it is ignorance, and it is a skill issue. Get better, get good. So, with that being said, the holiday season is going to be fantastic this year. There's going to be so many people that are going to be like, well, I didn't know this would happen. I didn't know what a tariff was. No. Yeah, you know what a tariff is. You're a functioning adult. You 100% know what that is. Shut the fuck up. I'm not being nice anymore. So, Yeah, I could definitely see where people say LegalEagle is definitely biased in certain capacities. I'm looking at this from a legal standpoint, and this is also an excuse for me to vent steam at this point, because once again, when we literally have people arguing, asylums, you are quite literally arguing for me, people like me, to eventually be committed to those asylums, because that's the demographic they would target. So, alas, that is going to do it for me on this one. Yeah, do better. If I have to do better, if I have to educate myself, so do you. That's not a get out of jail free card. It's not ignorance. It's just you being stupid. Do better. Have a good one.